Huh? Were you talking to me?
Nah, just do it. All good.
Welcome to everybody. Sorry we're a couple of minutes late. We're just technically getting the Facebook Live set up, and I couldn't do 4 things at once, so forgive me. We're excited to have DG with us today. I have a little intro. Hopefully it'll embarrass him somewhat by the gushing statements, but we'll run through it and see how it works. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second session, the Human Comes First Summit. This next one's an exciting one for me, as we'll be hearing from someone that likes to make waves in the marketing ecosystem, and someone that, being honest, has an almost cult-like following. Dave Gerhardt, or the marketing community, DG, CMO of Privy, is going to be hanging out with us this afternoon. For me, Dave is someone that I first became aware of about 3 years ago when he wrote a post on the no forms movement at Drift. Being honest, my first thought was, this dude's nuts. How can you actually do anything on digital without using a form to capture that person? But it got me interested in it, how, particularly in the way that he markets, and ultimately it brought Drift onto my radar. And Drift, for those of you who don't know anything about my agency, Drift has been a big part of our growth story over the last 3 years. So there you go, DG. From one little blog article, you changed the trajectory of my business. And from there on in, I've soaked up an awful lot of learning from Dave. I've signed up to, I even signed up to potentially have him as a mentor, but he never actually followed through with that program. And so his loss, ultimately. I'm never going to let you forget that one, DG, actually. DG's at the sharp end of marketing, and he's not afraid to share his opinions. And I think that's why people are so engaged with him and so hang on his every word. He's author of multiple books, hosts several podcasts. DG is a city boy from Boston turned Vermont suburbanite, raising 2 kids and seemingly turning everything he turns his marketing hands to gold. So case in point, he now runs a community of over 1,000 marketers on Patreon, and he's hard to get away from. If you use LinkedIn at all, you will see his posts. So how's that, DG? Have I bigged you up enough?
Yeah, that was great. Can we clip that and can we send that to my mom? That would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
That was really nice, Joe. And Richard, appreciate you guys having me. I think you two have done a lot for the marketing community. Joe, you and I spoke earlier this year, and Richard, we've been in touch for a while, and so happy to do it, and appreciate you guys letting me come on and share some opinions with some people.
Oh, it's absolutely our pleasure having you here, dude. So let's start with an easy one. In the last 5 years, in terms of marketing, what's your biggest fuck up?
Oh,
or lesson learned, if you want to put it slightly more politely?
I would say my biggest fuck up is probably hiring. Is people. It's not a like, I haven't made like a particular channel investment, or like, hey, we're going to spend $1 million on TikTok or whatever, right? It's honestly been about people. I think that I'm giving you that answer given like my role today, in that, as CMO, I'm not actually doing anything. I am spending my time coaching, editing, creating, strategy, making sure the team is happy and productive, and all that stuff. And I just think that the marketing and business side of things is actually not that hard if you think about it. It's like, if you just break down how do you grow a business? Well, you can get new customers to buy more things, or get fewer customers to cancel. Like it's not that complicated, but what is complicated is people. And so you can have the greatest marketing opportunity and the best marketing strategy, but if you don't have the right team to go and execute that, you're not going to be able to do it. And if I look back over the last 4, 5, 6 years, the one thing that I've learned is that experience matters. In that, when I'm 33 now, so I realize that I'm still young in this game. But when I was like 27, 28, I'd always roll my eyes at, look at people, experience this. And it really does matter, because now what I've learned is like, you need more. David at Drift used to always tell me like reps and sets with hiring, with people. And he's like, if you've never hired anybody before, there's no way you're going to go and be able to hire a team of 10, because you just don't have enough like reps and sets. And it's all pattern matching in meeting people. And so I'm saying that to say this, that you can throw out all the marketing tools and tactics and technology. The one most important thing in marketing to me is people. And there's two branches of that. Number one is the people on your team who you actually work with that are going to go and do the marketing with you, because ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the teams that actually execute. And the other part of people is your customers, understanding consumer behavior, how people think, how people make decisions. If you can just focus on that bucket, like you can go to a session, or look up a YouTube video on how to, do YouTube ads. Like the tools and technology are always going to change. People haven't. And I really believe that more than ever now.
And so like, this is totally off piece from what I was going to ask anyway, but like, do you find, so you mentioned it like now in your role as CMO, like you're hands off, you're not doing anymore, but like everything I've seen about you from the last like 3 years that I've kind of known and follow you is like, you almost seem like somebody who learns from doing, like a hands-on marketer. Like, how have you found that transition from a doer to a kind of a coach and mentor?
Yeah. Hold on. By the way, you did a great thing just there, which I need to say this because it drives me nuts and not a lot of people do it. You have planned questions. You've sent them to me and I've read them. We instantly 2 minutes into this interview went somewhere else, and you didn't just go, okay, Dave, next question, right? We're having a conversation. People, please do this more on your webinars, on your podcast. This is like the conversations that people want. Not, okay, Dave, next question anyway. So thanks for doing that, first of all.
You're welcome.
So a part of me has been the way that I've scratched the itch, honestly, because I love doing the marketing. And I don't think that's like secret to anybody. Like I love writing headlines, hooks, copy. I love being involved in that stuff. However, I realized that it was one of my biggest flaws, I think, in my last job, in that like, if you do more of the work, the team never takes it and learns it and does it and scales. And so I work with it like, for example, a team that I'm working with right now, we are very small, but the team is very effective. And I try to stay out of things because I find that I make things worse, like the deeper I go into them. And so I'm like really trying to use this as a challenge and say, hey, if I want to continue to grow as a person, as a leader, I got to be able to figure out this side of it. And I got to be able to, this is my challenge. And so I know I can do the writing. And so I know I can do the copy. And so what's fun about having my own little marketing group, DGMG, is I get to scratch all my marketing itches over there. Like I get to write whatever I want. I get to post whatever I want. The other day I spent $300 on Instagram ads just because I wanted to test something with my personal money to my personal, just to see, right? Nothing happened, surprise. And so I get to scratch my itch through that side project, and I think that's really valuable. It's valuable for me, but it also like helps me test ideas and stuff. And the other side of that is I think it's a fun challenge to figure out how to be the team leader, because what I'm realizing now is like, it doesn't matter the ideas that I have or the things that I say or the things that I come up with. Like my job literally is to get the team to do the job that we need. That is my job. And so before it was like, write a great headline. Okay. But my job, okay, how do I talk this person? Oh, they need to be motivated differently than this person. Okay. This person needs to be like, don't ever talk to them. Okay, cool. These two people need to talk more. Like you have to be able to see. So my job now is like, I'm kind of observing everything that's happening on the team and trying to like put that together for a marketing strategy. So it's different and it's really fun. And I think that I've grown a lot as a person and a manager because of it.
So you became CMO less than 6 months before like the world turned to shit and pandemic kicked off and stuff like that, right? So you're learning a new role. So like the CMO, you're making that transition from doer to coach and mentor. And you're also having to learn a new like personal working rhythm of like working remote. So like, how are you balancing those two things out?
I mean, look, I think at Drift, my last company, I was honestly managing a bigger team. So I wasn't CMO, I was VP of marketing, but I have experience managing the team. And so I think that hasn't been the biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge has been that we're all new. And so I joined Privy in December, and there's 7 people on the marketing team right now. And the longest I'm the one that's been on the team the longest. I joined in December. Most of them came in January and 1 month after that. And so the biggest challenge was really, holy shit, we have a whole new team of people. We're all new to each other. Like we've never even worked together, never mind worked at this company in this industry before. And so we're all new together, and we're never going to be in person. And so I think, we really only had from January to March, first week of March in person, and then we went fully remote. And I was bracing for like complete chaos and everything to change. And I got to say that I think work has been the one consistent thing. The team has done an amazing job just being like, you know what, this is life. This is how it is. I think because of the circumstances, people know that we didn't really have any other choice. And so for the first couple of weeks after we went remote, I treated it like it was a brand new team. And I did I did 2 one-on-ones with everybody every single week for the first couple of weeks. And quickly, like after 2 weeks of that, we were all like, this is too much. We don't need to talk to each other this much. We're good. But we kind of over-indexed on internal meetings. We did a daily stand-up. And so I think the biggest transition was just really, how do we get to know each other as a team? And to be honest, I know some people have done them, but like my team, we've talked about it. Nobody wants to do like team bonding over Zoom because we're all so sick of Zoom. And so it's like, look, we know less about each other probably personally because we're very much more transactional because we're like hopping on Zoom calls. But I think that people have more flexibility and freedom that they had before. I think they're pushed to have to kind of go find answers. And I also think that results really matter now more than anything because, for better or worse, sometimes at companies, people get promoted because they're the nice person at the water cooler and everybody likes to talk to them while they're getting their lunch. And I've always hated that because I'm not into small talk. It's one of the things that people make fun of me for. But I just think that a lot of stuff happens in the office where people who are not people, their performance gets mixed with their personality. And that makes it really hard for people to separate. Wow, I love Richard. He's really nice. That guy's so nice. Everybody loves that guy. Well, let me tell you something. Richard sucks at his job. Like nobody, you can't say that, right? And so I think what's happened at going remote is that we've had to figure it out how to work as a team and how to set very clear goals. We've really focused on setting goals that are tied to revenue, taking out a lot of the fluff and just like slimming it down. And I had to give up 50%. We cut our budget by 50% in the middle of the year. And so we had a new team cut the budget. And I think it's been awesome. This is a long-winded way of just saying like, it's been awesome to see the team rally. And it just further reinforces that it's all about the people, because I'm lucky to have this mix of 7 amazing people. If I had a team of 7 not great people, I'm sure I wouldn't be sitting here saying the same thing. I'm sure I'd be like, oh my God, this is chaos. But I have 7 autonomous, amazing people on the team.
So along those lines, right? So like the world seems determined to like keep changing the game. So like it's throwing all sorts of shit at us. So like politics, pandemics, like the inequalities, and then all of the like the kind of the resulting protests and things like that coming out of the back of it. So like it's moving goalposts across businesses, sales, marketing, everything is changing. And so like, how do you feel like the last 9 months has changed you as a marketer, you as a marketing team, like, or the way that you're leading teams? Like, how has that shifted?
It hasn't changed that much. I really don't. I think like what's changed is channels. There is no there's no in person right now. And you kind of got to understand that there's a lot of shit going on in the world. And so you got to be sensitive to that. You got to be empathetic to that. But I don't think too much. I don't know what has changed in marketing. Everybody's still online. Everybody's still buying products. Everybody still, needs to do that stuff. So I just think like day-to-day marketing hasn't changed.
But
I
you
think
did
the
lose
biggest
you did lose a big part of your like normal playbook though. So like if you look at what you did at Drift with like the hypergrowth series, like fucking amazing. And leading up to like pre-pandemic, you were like starting to talk about like, I think you'd even found a venue for like a privy event and stuff like that. So like that pulls that piece out. So like how have you replaced that?
So I think there's 2 things that we've tried to do. Number one is, instead of kind of like 1 or 2 mass concentrations of creativity, meaning like, I think most teams operate, hey, we got all this kind of regular stuff we're doing, but we're going to do the event, and that's going to be our big brand play. I think and to me, what I've tried to decouple is like the terms brand and creativity. I think what I've been saying is brand, but what I've been meaning is creativity. And so really what we've done is say, look, we're going to do the standard channels, but the way that we're going to win is by doing them better, being more creative. And so I think like part of it is applying that energy to the regular channels, which doesn't get done enough. The other thing that we did is we said, okay, how could we somewhat replicate this experience, but just do it online? And so we were like, okay, what if we did what if we did an online event? And we just were all feeling like, I don't know, that's one idea, but we really wanted to write a book. And so we said, look, instead of doing an event, what if we put all of our effort and energy into this book? And so that's really what we did from July until October. Dan on the team just like was like, I got this. We're gonna do this book. And sure enough, 4 months later, we come up, and I think the book as of yesterday sold like 1,300 copies. It's been incredible. And I actually think, I'm not sure our event would have been better. Like, I really don't. Like the pop and the buzz and so it's a good lesson in that, like, there's lots of ways to be successful. A lot of times, like in my Facebook group, for example, a lot of people will ask about like, pick one channel and or do this one thing. And I say like, I really don't know, because I think it's unique to every business and every marketing team. I think a lot of people don't think about the skill match. And so if you're like, oh, I really want to do an event, but you have no budget and nobody on your team has ever done an event before, I would say like most likely now is going to be the time to not do that, because that's not, you gotta like play to your strength if you have limited resources. And so I think like, I think it's really about matching what the market needs. And so for us, looking back, I don't even think an event was the right play, because we sell to small businesses that are everywhere across the globe. It's not like they are concentrated in an area, right? Like at Drift, for example, or if you go back to HubSpot, right? Both of those companies have anchors in those kind of geographic areas. And so having conferences in those places makes sense. Where Privy, there's 500,000 merchants that are, in every single country. And so I think what we ended up doing was able to reach more people by doing it online, and we gave people a unique enough experience that no one's sitting around saying like, oh, I wish Privy did an event right now. They're like, I love this book that you guys did.
How do you even start that conversation of like, because I think every marketer, I think deep down, if you push them, they're like, I want to write a fucking book, because that's like a tick box qualification. I am a real marketer at that point. Like, how do you even start that conversation internally and being like, do you know what, guys, we're gonna write a book. Okay, on what? How does that come together?
Yeah, I think
how many books have you written so far?
I have been involved in 3. I haven't like, I'm not sitting there writing. Like I've been involved, but it's a hell of a process. Like I'm convinced that there's a whole business. If I just only talked about like marketing a book, I think that could be a whole niche. But anyway, I think the way that stuff comes up, Richard, is like, is somebody on the team has an idea and is passionate about it, and they bring it up. Like, I think people like to sit around and be like, it's not like we didn't have this meeting. Like, I think when it's forced, it's really hard to be creative. And so like, it's not like we had this meeting. It was like, we're all going to sit down in this meeting. We're going to come up with an idea. It's like the team is hungry and creative and is interested in marketing. And so what happens is when that happens, you have somebody like what happened at Privy. Dan on my team is like, hey, we should do a book. Like, and I've learned a lot from how I've done this in the past. I think we could do it here. Can I make a pitch? Like, yeah, do it. Like, pitch me on it. Let's do it. And so then it's like, oh, wow, this is cool. Okay. And I love that element. That's my favorite stuff in the marketing team, is like, I love the pitch. I like the pitching of stuff. Like, sure, I'm open to doing anything. You want to buy a billboard? Let's do it. You want to do an event? Let's do it. You want to buy a bus? Let's do it. But who's going to own that? Because it's only going to work. And I've learned this the hard way. If it's my idea and I then like pass it on to the team and they're not excited about it, it's not gonna go how I thought it would be. You always got to get, once somebody internalizes that as their idea and then they take it out to the team or the world, that's when it becomes real. And that's true for marketing. That's true for changing behavior for anything. And so it's always better if you can have a team. You want to have a team that you can encourage them to come with creative ideas. And that was a good way. That was a good way to do it. Now, what happened was we got a budget for it. We got a timeline for it. We got all the specifics. And so when you get better at this over time, you don't just say, hey, we want to write a book. Most people say, I want to write a book. Okay. Here's the difference. Hey, Joe, I want to write a book. We would publish it in October. It's going to cost this much. I think we could sell this many copies of it. And I think if we start working on it now, we can have V1 done by July. And here's how much it would take to get started. Can we do a book? That is how you manage up, and that is how you get shit done. That makes stuff go much faster. And so come with the whole ask, do the research. Like that's the fun part of marketing. And I think that's how that selfishly, that is how I grew my career, which is like, here's an idea. I'm going to come up with a plan. And then I'm going to say, hey, should we do this? Versus a lot of people will say, I want to write a book. And then in all their one-on-ones with their manager, they're always complaining about how they never got a chance to write the book. Well, damn it, make the plan. Force somebody's hand. Let's make a plan and show us how we can get this done. And let's go do the book. That's how you got to approach that, in my opinion.
Can I jump in there, Rich?
No, Joe.
Question.
No, Joe. Sit in the corner and be quiet.
So
with a question. With your good camera and all.
Yeah,
that.
I know. So I should say I'm here to be the voice of people asking the questions. So if you have any, get them in now. But that being said, DG, you've been speaking a lot about tying marketing to revenue recently, and there was a point there where you described the pitching process of a book, where somebody goes in and they say it's going to cost this much and we're going to bring in this much revenue as a result of sales from these books. You've also said that you're trying your best to sort of decouple brand and creative away from revenue. So when it actually comes to a book as an example, but sort of wider marketing things, how do you decouple something which is almost inevitably a huge part of brand building with later revenue and stuff like that, which may be less clear at a later point?
It's like, this is such a good question. It comes up a lot because people love this question because it's not a like, yes, it's not a blind binary answer. It requires your gut. And it's like saying like, you can be super healthy and you can eat pizza or McDonald's, right? You can do both. It's not always the same. And so I think for me, one way that has been helpful to do it is I'm typically the one that's helping to like lead a project. And so I just know that I know where it fits and I'm okay with us spending time on that. Like it's my bias to be involved in let's do an event. Yeah, let's do a book. Like I'm going to be involved in that stuff just naturally. And so I can mentally like see the team and see like, okay, are we over indexing on this book? And that's not why we're hitting our, trial goals or lead goals or meeting goals right now. Okay, shoot. And I've done this. I do this a lot. I'm like, fuck, all right, hold on. We got to move some stuff around. Yep. I shouldn't have put $5,000 there. Okay. We got to rejigger that. Right. And on top of that, I also just have kind of like carved it out. I try to carve it out separately from a goal perspective. And so it's like your goals for this, like if you have to pick 4 goals for the team for this quarter, right? One might be traffic, one might be trials, one might be, some product launch. And then the fourth one might be, finish V1 of book. And that does not have a clear measurable revenue goal, but 75 out of the 100% of marketing things do. And that's okay. Cause you got to be able to carve stuff out like that. Same way, I go back to Drift, like first year that we did hypergrowth, this is why it was successful, was David as the CEO was like, I don't care about ticket revenue. It's not a sales event, right? If ticket revenue allows us to spend more and get better speakers and do whatever, but I don't want this to be a sales event. And I don't want like this to be a pipeline event where we got to trap customers and make them, become meetings and whatever. And because I had those guardrails as a marketer, okay, cool. Then I can focus on all this other stuff. And that was, and guess what happened, by the way? We turned that into an amazing revenue event. But I think where people struggle with this is somebody asked me a question the other day, hey, you talk a lot about revenue, but you also talk a lot about podcasts. How does that work? Mm-hmm. Well, same thing. You can do both right now. If you have no revenue, if you have no traffic, if you have no trials, if you have no leads, you have no meetings, you have no pipeline, and you're in the marketing meeting, you're like, guys, I'm starting the podcast this week. I'm going to say, first, how about we get some traffic and some trials and some leads? Now, once you can juggle, people are smart. You can do both things at once. And so then I would say, okay, cool, you're making progress. I know we're not going to get to the trial number overnight, but we're making progress. We're heading in the right direction. It's continuing to grow. Yeah, let's also start to do this. But it's really a gut call. You got to be able to see both priorities and make a judgment call. I think a lot of people misconstrue it as, I'm going to spend a year investing in this asset, and then in year 2, I'm going to be able to quantify it. And it's just not the case. And then once you do it, you feel it, and you don't have to like spend all your time. The way that I then learned to justify some of those things in executive meetings was I would literally take screenshots of the things that people were saying on Twitter or LinkedIn about the way that we were doing marketing. And the CFO, even in that meeting, was like, wow, okay, I don't know how to quantify that. We don't need to.
I love that. No, and then that also goes back down to the point which you started this whole conversation on as well, which was experience. You know, and you're applying experience in a personal capacity with the people you work with and for, but you've also got your years of marketing experience here. You know, and able to balance those dual priorities. I think that's great, and I love that point, by the way. Just to pick up on that, which was the 25%. You don't need necessarily the answer, so long as you can justify it with the logic and a pathway to future success, which is great. If I'll bring in a question here from Dave, who asks, DG, what's your greatest achievement to date, both professionally and personally? Maybe just professionally. You can go personal if you like, but let's start with professional.
I think I'm most proud of the overall journey. Like five years ago, I was working at HubSpot doing a podcast, and everybody thought that I was like the podcast guy. And I think I've had some success over the last 5 years. So I'm most proud of like the whole thing, the macro, just building a career in marketing, and just realizing that this is what I like to do and enjoy doing and have had success with, and just like focus on my strengths as opposed to like trying to figure out all these things that I'm not. Most importantly, though, the biggest accomplishment is my family, my wife, and my kids. I mean, that's not even close. And I heard somebody once say, yeah, you changed so much since you've had kids. And I was like, no shit. Like those are do different lives. And so I think those are the things that I'm most proud of.
So you're well known for like being so you're well known for like questioning the norms in marketing. So like one of my favorite things that I've ever heard you say, and I think it was on one of the old like Seeking Wisdom podcasts, is when they go left, we go right. And and I think that comes from Coach Belichick, like one of his quotes, which is like, when they zig, we zag, which is basically like when somebody's doing one thing, we want to do the opposite because it's less populated, like, or they're not expecting it. And I think like for me, that's something that like a quality that I hold dear. But what is it that drives that mentality for you?
What drives it is, I think, that's a good question. What drives the mentality is that, like, I guess now that I've done it and I've seen it work, but here's what it is. I don't ever want to be the person that has to stand in the back of the room and jump up and down and shout to get you to pay attention to me, right? And or my product or my thing. And I think that's what happens with marketing when you are just playing the same game as everybody else. Everybody's got a blog, everybody's got a podcast, everybody's on Twitter, everybody's got a YouTube channel, everybody's doing Zoom calls, right? And so I think I've always tried to think about like, okay, well, where is a unique opportunity where I can be successful? And so one example of that for me, like way even before Drift and even before I went to HubSpot, was I started a podcast called Tech in Boston. And this was in 2014. Nobody had podcasts then, really. I mean, masses didn't have podcasts, and everybody thought it was silly and dorky. And I had a podcast, and that really helped separate me, because I could have had a blog, I could have had a newsletter, but I was the only one with a podcast. And so I saw that early on. It was like, oh, okay, there's something here. And then, if you just observe, you start to learn and observe different brands, and you watch why people buy from different people. Why do people have this like cult like following of Patagonia? Well, they have a brand that stands for something, and they, in their marketing, they only use real people in their photos, and they took out a whole ad that said, don't buy this jacket because they care for the environment. Okay, interesting. That's like not like everybody else. And so you keep trying to find these things, and yet you realize that what the common thread is that almost back to Apple, think different. That is the whole approach. My friend Christopher Lockhead has a podcast, Follow Your Different, right? Those are the opportunities to stand out. And so even you can stand out even by taking a traditional channel and just having your own take on it, right? Like you could completely reinvent how you do Twitter, and that could be your thing. And so I've seen the power of that. And so now that's that's kind of like my hack for doing marketing, is to just find those things. If nobody in your industry has written a book, well, damn it, you could be the first company in that industry to write the book. That's just how I have become wired to think now.
So like with DC, I get it, right? The dude gets marketing. Like he's a rarity of like a CEO who like understands marketing and its importance. But like how do you have that? So let's assume it's not DC. How do you have that conversation with a CEO when you're like, I want to try something. It might not work. I might not be able to prove ROI, but I feel like we should be doing this. Like, how does that conversation go?
Honestly, it usually tries to go with me doing it without asking for permission for it, because like, and I'm serious, like it doesn't mean go buy a billboard, but like there's usually ways. I would say my first instinct is to look for ways to test it and have a gut before I go ask the CEO for that, right? If I don't have that, then my next thing would be to just find. CEOs love examples and they love benchmarks, and they especially love when you can show them other successful companies that have done something similar in the past or that was cool. And so like, then if you're the CEO, Richard, I'm trying to make the case to you and I'm like, hey, I know you're going to think this is crazy, but I prepared a little. Like, first of all, do your homework, prepare. Like, you are a marketing person. You better be good at pitching. That is the job. Say, hey, Richard, can we sit down for a second? Or in our next one-on-one, I want to walk you through it's a crazy idea that I have. And I want to do it. Now, look, it's crazy. However, we're really on track in all of these key areas. And so I feel like it's okay. And I'm only going to carve out, this is going to be in 20% of my time. And so I'm really still focusing on traffic and leads and meetings and revenue. And we're good, by the way, we're on pace for this month. But I'm going to just do this to 20% of my time. Okay. So let me show you. Salesforce once did this thing, blah, blah, blah. Marketo once did this thing, blah, blah, blah. So here's my vision. What if we did boom? And it's going to cost this much. And here's how I want to test it, right? Do you see how I went from the whole one-on-one there? Like, I think that is how you have to approach it versus I asked my CEO if we could do billboards and she said, no, I hate my CEO. Like you have to, your job is like, CEO's got a lot of shit going on there. I promise you, they're not thinking about what our next marketing channel is going to be. And so you can be more successful in that job by doing more of the work up front and pitching it. And that's how I would do it, really over indexing on like, this is not going to take away from what we're doing, because really quickly, if you can prove out impact in one way or another, that could be measurable sales or just like, oh my God, a ton of people have started tweeting at us or sending us emails over last week. You can then show that and you're going to say, okay, yeah, this feels like something we should go deeper on. And the CEO is going to be hopefully on the same page as you.
So you have like thousands of marketers like hanging on your every word, right? So like, and they're paying for the privilege, which is in itself like a rarity, because there's so much out there that marketers could be doing. And you have how many marketers in DGMG now?
1,800.
1,800. I mean, fucking hell, that's growing at a rate of knots. And I think like, so where do you get your inspiration from? Because you're inspiring this kind of like an army of marketers across the globe. Where are you getting your inspiration from?
There's not one particular thing, honestly. I think what I just am always thinking about marketing. It's so weird and I hate to talk about it, but it's true. Like, it's just what I think about when I look at brands. My wife is watching some video about, a new eyeliner, like a beauty blogger, and this beauty blogger has 20 million subscribers. And I'm like, how the hell did she get 20 million subscribers? And now I'm down that path. And like, that's just how I think now. And so it's really just being curious. Like, I wish I could tell you there's one particular person that like I've copied or patterned, but I think it's like 5 or 6 years ago, I got really interested in marketing, like, and I loved it as my job and my career. And I just think that now what I'm feeling is the compounding effect of that, where it just is like, I've read a bunch of books, but I've done a lot of things, and like those things like start to cross pollinate and I get to do more and see more. And so I think it's just being I guess you could call it like a lifelong learner, but specifically focus on marketing. I'm not one of those people who's like, I'm not like a biohacker, and I don't have a crazy spreadsheet with my, personal finances. Like I am what I am what you see, which is like, I like my family. I like to work out and play golf, and I do marketing. And that means I think about it as a hobby, and I think about it as my job. And so that lens has paid off more than, I've copied a particular person. However, and I actually have this book on my desk because I was supposed to I need to do a podcast book review about it. But Steal Like an Artist is a book that I know a lot of people have read, but I just got onto it recently. I'm sure somebody's shared it with me over the years, but basically this book talks about the power of copying and stealing other people's work, right? In a nicer term. It doesn't mean I'm plagiarizing Richard's stuff, but once I realized that is the whole secret. That is the whole secret to leapfrogging what you're doing in marketing, because you realize I don't have to come up with all these answers on my own. And so it doesn't mean go and copy someone's website, but it means you learn how to think, how to find examples. And so now if somebody says, like, Joe, you could come to me tomorrow and say, hey, Dave, I want to team up, and you and me, we're gonna rent a line of private jets, and we're gonna get them painted with DGMG on the side of them. Can we team up on that? I would say, yeah, I have no idea how to do that, but I'm gonna go look at other people who have branded planes, and I'm gonna see, and I'm gonna find the coolest painter. And so, like, it's a way that you've learned how to think. Hey, we're doing a new event. I got to make a landing page for this event. I think 5 years ago, I would have been like in a room in a whiteboard by myself, being like, landing page. Okay. Headline, right? Now I'm like, okay, who does great events? Oh, Envision does great events. Boom. Now I'm on Envision's site, and I'm looking in the Wayback Machine, trying to find their landing pages. Like, that type of learning has had more impact than I follow one particular person.
Standing on the shoulders of giants in the marketing community.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I don't ever get mad if people copy my stuff, because I am literally just, all my content is that I'm putting out is just like a collaboration of other people's ideas that I've heard in the past, probably somewhere in a podcast, in a video, in a talk, and whatever. But now I'm experiencing it because I'm also doing it, and then I'm saying it. And so, yeah, it might sound like something somebody else has said before, because that's probably where I got it. Like, but I'm not saying anything original. I'm just saying it. And I think 99% of the people in any industry just don't say it. And that is the opportunity.
Action wins.
So that. Sorry, Rich, I just got a quick question. DG, I mean, you speak about like the book, Still Like an Artist, and I see that you've been speaking about in the DGMG as well recently. Is there a thought that's occupying your mind at the moment? Is it the stealing element, the stealing element, or is it something else? Is there a thought that's running through your head that either changed your world or is bothering you at the moment?
I'm waiting for an outcome in the election in the US right now. That's pretty much.
Is there an election on?
There is. It's on TV. It's on TV if you have TV, or Twitter if you have Twitter.
No, fair play. Yeah, I think that's fairly all consuming, to be fair, at the moment. So go for it.
DG, one of the first lessons you taught me, if I put it like that. So I remember listening to, and I remember it clearly. I was driving into work. It was listening to the Seeking Wisdom podcast, and like I was in the car and like driving into like a multi-story like car park thing, and you guys were talking about like the importance of owning your own audience, and like that. I mean, I've heard you talk about it loads, but like, why do you feel like that's important for marketers?
Because you need to have a group of people that you can talk to on demand. If you think that people are just going to come to your website just because, it's not going to ever happen. Right. And so number one is it is the single best sales channel. Like and here, the thing that I love about e-commerce that's different than B2B is that every time, if I'm an e-commerce brand, email is the money button. Every time I send out an email, I'm going to make money, because that's usually what you're saying. Hey, here's a promo that we're running. Here's Gymshark, right? Like, they're teasing genius marketing right now. Gymshark, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is the biggest sales event online, coming up at the end of this month. Gymshark is like, we're running a pre-Black Friday sale, and it's going to be even bigger. And so they're going to hop the line, get a bunch of people, get a bunch of people's attention in there. So I don't know how I got there, but email is like everything else is rented. There's a great tweet that has been passed around our office at Privy from Toby, the CEO of Shopify. And it's like, email is the only thing you own on the internet, online, right? Everything else is just rented. I can't think about it. I have like 20,000 followers on Twitter, and I feel like, 7 people see one of my tweets, right? Like, what is that? None of that means anything because I don't actually have a relationship. Now, on the flip side of that, I have a list of 1,800 people who are not just email subscribers, they're paying members. And so the engagement is like unlike anything I've ever seen. When I send out a message to DGMG, via email, I'm getting 50 to 100 responses instantly because those are engaged people. They're on a list. And so I think that's the most powerful thing. The second piece of that is without an audience, you can't learn what to make. And so the most powerful thing is like through the best hack for understanding, getting better at content is just understanding people. And so if you can have a community, even if you start a Facebook group and you have 20 customers in there and every day people are posting things, you could run a whole content strategy just based on what people are posting and the questions that they're asking in the Facebook group. And so like using the DGMG group as an example, Joe, like there's so many questions in there. I feel like just from what's in that group right now, I could write a book on B2B marketing with none of my original thoughts. And I could be successful with that book because I know what types of things people want. And so what I'm doing now, because of that audience, you can almost like put insurance on your content. Like I am very shocked now when I create a piece of content that doesn't work because I should know, being in that freaking Facebook group every day, I should know what people are interested in. And I think that's the other value of building an audience is number one, it's the best, marketing channel from an ROI perspective by far, owning your email list. And number two is through an audience, you can learn what you should actually go and create, which is the most powerful thing.
So like we've touched on it a little bit, but like the DGMG, like why start it? There's fucking loads of marketing groups. There's loads of Patreons. Like why, what gave you the desire to go down that path? Like, and what makes it special? Because it's obviously successful. So like what makes it special and why are people engaging with it?
Like there's no way to say this without coming off as arrogant, and I'm really not, but because it's my content. That's why, people, like it's not some anonymous B2B group. And so the reason why it works is because I spent 5+ years, which is not a long time in life, 5+ years of putting out content through my podcast, through LinkedIn, through whatever I would else be posting. And so like LinkedIn grew like crazy the last 2 years for me for whatever reason, just posting there. And so I think my bet was like, I routinely saw like LinkedIn posts. This is before they told me that the reach was a joke and now it's turned way down. But like you'd see a post about something that's 500,000 views and 300 comments. And I'm like, people want this. It's the same. So it's the same thing I just talked about, but that was specifically on social media and with blogs and writing. And so I thought, you know what, I do feel a reaction to this. I think I could do something, but I honestly was just going to launch a podcast, like regular podcast, going to just call it something and that was my way of like, so I could still, I love B2B marketing. I love talking about marketing. And so I wanted to like going to Privy, I still wanted to have kind of like a podcast. Excited and kick my mic out. I wanted to have a podcast where I just talked about marketing and what I was doing, and I was going to launch it. And then my wife is really into this podcast, and she's like, she kept talking about this woman's Patreon, and I'm like, what does that mean, Patreon? And she's like, oh, she has like 5,000 subscribers on her Patreon. I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, well, I pay her $7 a month, and I get this private podcast. And I'm like, oh, that's genius. And I'm like, and what does she share there? And she's like, well, she has a public facing podcast, but what she shares with this podcast is like deeper, like it's secret stuff that she doesn't share publicly. And I'm like, oh man, I bet people would eat that up because of what I've been sharing on LinkedIn. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to build it on Patreon. And because it was on Patreon, it was really easy. And so I launched it and I came up with a little hook, which is like, because we had a bunch of PR stuff waiting to happen when I left Drift, I had a feeling it was going to be a big topic of conversation because it was a surprise to a lot of people. And so I teed it all up where I had the Patreon ready to go, and I recorded the first episode about why I left and what I was doing. And I left it in the Patreon, and then I announced it when I left. And so I said, hey, and I'm launching this new thing. And so I also was able to like build up some hype and some tension. A couple hundred people got in there. And then the way that it's been growing now is just because of consistent content. And so like, why should people pay for it? Now they come in and they say, oh, wow, this is a different level of marketing content that is shared online. I think there's just so much freaking content in the world that people want to just look. And I'm the same way. As many podcasts as I've created and started, I only have like 4 podcasts that I subscribe to on my phone because I'm just sick of. There's too many outlets. I don't want it from everybody. And so my pitch is like, look, if you're going to learn or talk about B2B marketing or marketing from one person, maybe that's me, and maybe they'll subscribe and pay $10 a month to do it. That was my bet, and I think so far it seems to be working.
So you just touched on it a bit then about like when you left Drift. So like when you left Drift, and like I was one of like the early people who jumped on your Patreon because like I love the content that you're pushing out, and was like, yeah, absolutely, I want to be part of that. And I remember the post, and you talked to like quite candidly about the fact that you as a marketer, like you're the startup guy, you're like that high growth, like kind of like rapid fire, like that's the phase of growth that you're really good at. And the phase that Drift was moving into was more of like kind of the enterprise, probably the wrong word, but more of that like enterprise. I think stable is probably the wrong word as well, but like it's that next phase of growth that you didn't really felt like it fit for you. Like, how did you come to that realization?
I think it came from realizing that I wasn't like enjoying many of the day-to-day things that I was doing. And instead of like sulking and being miserable about it, I was like, I'm going to do something about it. And I realized that, wait, I don't love being in one-on-ones all day and budget meetings and planning meetings. And, you got to talk to, this person, is not getting along with this person. And I'm like, the thing that gives me energy that I love to do is to do marketing, is to like, I love, like, I got an idea and I'm walking in the office, and then I'm at the whiteboard in the office by myself for 2 hours drawing on something. I got no meetings. I'm creating something. I love that. And I wasn't getting to do any of that. And that's not a knock. That is just like, we talked about, David and I on those podcasts, we talked a lot about growing at the same speed as the company, as a person and whatever. And the company just got to be in a different place. And so, I remember we talked, and I think he said something like, well, like how can I get you to stay? And I was like, you can't. And it's not, you just like, you can't, unless you want to rewind the company back to 10 people. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, yeah, well, of course not. Right. And so it was great. And so like, that was something that I'm also proud of, is like just being able to have that self-awareness and get to that point. And it was the right decision for me. It was the right decision for the company. And I think you got to know as a marketer, like which path are you on? Are you, do you want to be an individual contributor? Do you want to be a manager? If you want to be at what point? I knew that I was never going to be, for a bunch of different reasons, I was never going to be the public company suit handshake wearing CMO that just like, I got confident enough in marketing and in my job to know that I didn't have to go that path. And so I had been really close with Ben from Privy for a while. I think people know that I worked there 7-8 years ago, and we had been talking, and he gave me an opportunity to like kind of start from scratch in marketing. We brought in a brand new marketing team. We brought in a brand new marketing strategy. And so it's been an amazing period of growth, I think for me in the last year and a half. And yeah.
So you've got like a year of hindsight now, right move?
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't tell you if I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, I was just, can I catch him out? No. So like, along.
However, hold on. Somebody did say to me though, because e-commerce is an industry that is just like insane growth because of COVID. And someone was like, look at Dave Gerhardt skate to where the puck was going. And I'm like, if you think that I knew that this was going to happen, like there's no way that I knew
Exclusive
that.
COVID was DG's fault. He
Yeah,
set it
right.
up because of his career path.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So Hannah, I hope I said that right, has asked a question on the Q&A. What's the best piece of advice you could give to somebody shooting to become a young CMO in the future?
Go to a company where you can be that role even if you're not the CMO. And so like what I realize now is that when I joined Drift, I was the first marketing person there. And so I wasn't CMO. I was senior marketing manager. And I had to just do everything. I had to figure out, how do we get a new website? I had to figure out, how do we do an event? I had to figure out, how do we run ads? I had to figure out, how do I make my first hire? How do I make my second hire? How do I make my third hire? And so through that process, it was the perfect company match for me at that stage of my career. It's probably not for everybody, but I think that at least personally for me, was the best way to grow, because I got to do it all and then hire the people that could do it all and manage the people that could do it all. And that was like kind of how I learned to do that. I was talking to somebody last week that I do some coaching with, and he was like talking to me about a job that he's in now, and he's at a big company, and the path for him to become CMO at a big company like that is too incremental. He's got just the company stages has to go from like senior manager level 3, director level 1, director level 2, direct. I'm like, you should just leave and go to an early stage company where you can do it all and grow by doing. And so that's kind of that would be my secret hack for anybody. People don't want to do that, by the way. People don't want to do that. They want to hear that, just talk to your man. Like most of the times people don't want to hear that they might have to leave their job in marketing. Like, but I think that's the reality of it, is if you want to take that big jump, you got to be able to do it. You got to leave HubSpot, well-known, successful public company, get some stock options every quarter to make a jump, to go to a company like Drift, to have your career and life transformed. That is what happened. And, I can't say that happens every time. But that's how I would think about it.
So, I mean, I'm just aware that actually we've only got like kind of 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to jump into some of the, well, Joe, do you want to spit out some of the questions in the Q&A panel? Because I've taken up loads of DG's time.
Sure, by all means. So there's one here from Ravi, which I really like, which he asks, we've talked a lot about marketing, obviously, but he's curious to hear DG's thoughts on how he fosters alignment with sales / customer experience or success teams.
Yeah. So on the sales one, to me, it's about focusing on revenue, period. Like, I think that's the biggest, there's a million tactics in there, but I think you need to think of it as the company has to get to one revenue number as a company. And there's typically 2 inputs into revenue: sales and marketing, if you just really oversimplify. And so if the company goal is to get to 50 million next year, how much is sales going to contribute? How much does sales need to contribute? How much does marketing need to contribute? And then together, those 2 numbers equal the company goal. When you're aligned in that way, it makes a lot of the other stuff is just bullshit and personal problems and day-to-day challenges. But that's just that you can fix anything else as long as you're aligned on the revenue piece of it. So I would focus there.
And how does that work? So as an example here, when you're splitting that up, a very sort of traditional setup would be, marketers drive the leads and then the sales close it, and then so the revenue would go 100% in the sales category.
Yeah.
How do you split that up?
Well, it's so you're in that model, marketing is responsible for feeding the sales team. And so what you need is you need a 2-way agreement as opposed to a 1-way agreement, which is that's a 1-way agreement, Joe, which is, hey, you're going to give us these leads and we're going to close them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I want is an agreement. That's not an agreement. That's a dictatorship. An agreement is, okay, we're going to, hey, Joe, each month we're going to give you this many of these types of leads. Cool. And in exchange, you're going to touch them within the first X number of hours and minutes and days. And you're going to talk to them at least this many times. And you're going to do these many things, especially these types. You're going to talk to them even faster. Mm-hmm. Cool. Now we have a system for accountability, which is like, then you can have a framework to talk about all the other things. Well, these leads are shit. Okay. Are they shit? Yeah. Look, let me show you. I've been calling them for 15 days, just like you asked me, and nothing's happening. Huh. Maybe the leads are shit, right? You can have more productive conversations that way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Sweet.
Also, you have to get, you can't just have that, though. You have to do that and you have to enforce it weekly. You have to have a weekly conversation with the sales leader, like sales leaders and marketing leaders in the same room together. Here's the plan. Where do we head on? What are we behind on it? That's how that has to break out.
But that's about people, right? And, and this is exactly what our first speaker spoke about this morning was very much on the topic that, it's not marketing versus, it's all of us, working towards the same goal, and we've got to speak the same language as each other.
Yep. And by the way, to go a step further on that, if you find that you still can't get aligned, ask how somebody is compensated. I'm serious. It's not ask them, like, I don't need to know how much you make, but I want to say, Joe, do you get a bonus if we hit this number of leads?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Joe, do you get a bonus because a lot of people are misaligned because of that, right? You're going to get paid out. Like where the best execs that I've seen do this, they say, everybody on the team, your bonus is based on company revenue, period. Mm-hmm. We win as a team, we lose as a team. And I think that's the best way to do that.
So DG, like on those same lines, right? So a couple of days ago, I saw you post on LinkedIn. What did you say? So if marketing today is supposed to own pipeline, why does no one talk about CMO becoming the new CRO? Like, where do you feel like the role of CRO and CMO differ or align?
I think the reason I said that is because literally the title of the job is Chief Revenue Officer. Marketing is a huge piece of revenue. And usually companies have a CMO and a CRO. And so I'm literally just stuck on the definition. That's what I'm trying to be a troll about, which is like CRO except marketing. You don't, in some cases they do run marketing. I know a CRO that now has marketing that reports into the CRO. But for companies that have the CMO and CRO, and I'm just trying to have an opinion. All I'm really doing is just trying to stick up for marketing, and that I don't really actually care about who does what job. I'm just trying to make the point that like marketing should be a revenue function. And so therefore you could make the case that marketing could be the CRO also.
So another question from the comments. So what would make someone stand out and get your attention so that you would consider recruiting them into your team? I feel like this is about to be a pitch for a job at the end of this.
Yeah. I mean, if it's fine, I would love the pitch, but to me, it's about seeing some work. And, I need to be able to see some work that you've done publicly. So if you're a video person or designer or website builder, whatever, to be able to say, hey, here's something that I've built. Okay. And then number two, here's what I think I could do that would improve, your marketing. Those are the two things that always stand out is when people just like content marketing, right? When people add value, the people think this is a good email, but it's not. Hey, Dave, I'm super hungry. I'm a hustler. I will post all your tweets. I will put them on handwritten notes and, I don't know. And like that stuff is great, but it's not actionable. Like where, hey, Dave, I'm an SEO expert actually. And I've worked with companies like X, Y, and Z. And I was actually checking out your site. And I saw that you guys really, do you have a keyword strategy right now? Because you don't rank for any, XYZ terms. And I think there's an opportunity where you could be capturing 10,000 more visitors a month if you did. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Like that's how I think you gotta try to lead that. And even if you have no experience, the cool thing about marketing today is that it's all online marketing. You could do that with a fake website. You could learn these tools yourself and plug in other people's website. You could draw fake business examples. Like you can basically mock all that up and it will still be good enough.
So DG, I think like we're well out of time now. So like, thank you for spending a bit of time with us this afternoon. It's been great. It's nice to catch up as well.
Yeah, thanks for the chat. I appreciate you talking to either of you guys. I think you know marketing, which makes it fun. Good stuff to ask. And now, like I'm thirsty, so I'm gonna go get a drink of water. Okay.
Just before we go as well, I just want to give one more shout out to our sponsor, AdRoll. So we talked about it this morning, but go and check out adroll.com/community. It's like a community for marketers by marketers. And I think you'll all get a lot of value out of that. But once again, DG, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody else, we'll see you in the next sessions.
Yeah, bye. See you later.